joining us now for more on this and all the other politics, we have political analyst Michael Genovese and criminal defense attorney and former assistant U.S. attorney David Katz. Okay, here's part of CNN's reporting from the courthouse on Wednesday. Manafort's defense team implied that the case against him is politically motivated as part of Mueller's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Defense attorney Richard Westling said Manafort became the special counsel's victim in a selective process of pulling his financial records to concoct a narrative of an elaborate fraud scheme. Clearly, their goal was to stack up the counts, Westling said of the special counsel. Yeah, David, there was this decision before the trial began that there would be no mention of Russia, there would be no mention of collusion, they would just focus on the events before the 2016 campaign. The prosecution has objected to this closing statement put out there by the defense. What are the implications, though, now for the jurors, for this case? How does the jury unhear what they heard?
Well, the prosecution objected successfully. There's a motion called motion for selective prosecution. You argue that to a judge. And they did not win that motion with the judge. So it was improper for them to argue it to a jury. Now, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I try to win cases, and I've won them, but within the bounds of propriety. And that judge, who was very tough on the prosecutor, wasn't very tough on the defense on that one. I don't think it's going to make any difference. I think it's an overwhelming case against Paul Manafort. But that was a bit of a foul by the defense attorneys.
I mean, but what were they up to? It was sort of sneaky move right at the end? I mean, what was it, sort of like a last Hail Mary play?
Well, yeah, they were hoping to create some adversity. Right. You know, they were trying to make the jury not be sympathetic to the government's case. That was why they attacked Gates so much. Yeah. But, you know, the answer to that, John, is that the government didn't pick Gates. Manafort chose Gates. They don't choose Boy Scouts to commit crimes with. They pick people just like Gates. And Gates got on the stand and said, guess what? We committed a crime together.
Prostitutes testify against pimps, is how somebody described it to me once. Michael, despite what Donald Trump may say publicly about, you know, this has nothing to do with him, he doesn't care, there are a lot of implications for him on, you know, resting on the outcome of this trial, especially, you know, if it's a guilty verdict, which seems more likely than not at this point.
Well, you're right. It literally has nothing to do with Russia, but symbolically it does. Because a lot of viewers will not make the disconnect. And so that's why a guilty or not guilty verdict is very important. For Mueller, to get a guilty verdict is to give him great momentum. For a not guilty verdict, well, then Donald Trump will then blast his tweets all over the place. But it's a function of politics being a zero-sum game today. And so winners and losers are what matter, not the truth, not the evidence, and that's why a win is big for either side.
Also, yeah, for either side, so we've got Robert Mueller as well. This is the first case that the special counsel has brought to trial. So, David, how important is, you know, this case for Mueller, especially as this political pressure continues to build on him and his team?
Well, I think it's important for Mueller for two reasons. Number one is the momentum. I agree with that. And number two is just the consequences. At some point, I believe Manafort has to flip. He has to provide information about Trump because it makes sense for him. He's 69 years old. Some of these counts carry a 30-year prison term all by themselves. The reality is if he loses this trial, he doesn't appear to have great appeal issues. He could throw a Hail Mary with the judge, but after all the things the judge has said, I wouldn't put my eggs in that basket that the judge is going to give him a very low sentence in a case like this with these implications, $30 million potentially of taxes evaded, of bank loans that are not kosher. So he's got, I think, nowhere to turn, and that's why it's important. If it's a hung jury, that will give encouragement to Manafort. Manafort may actually go through another trial. Why not if you get a hung jury?
Exactly. Trump's lawyers say they're actually still waiting to hear back from Robert Mueller. They gave him, you know, their final offer, if you like, in these ongoing negotiations of whether or not Donald Trump will sit down for an interview with Mueller's investigators. We heard more on this from President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy, facts are in the eye of the beholder, Giuliani.
I think they're waiting for the Manafort case. I think they feel if they win, they're going to be empowered. If they lose, and I don't know what, it doesn't have anything to do with us.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to square with what we're hearing more recently, Michael, from Mueller's side, that they're now looking at a grand jury subpoena to try and force the president to testify.
Well, I think Rudy's banking on not having a subpoena to face. and it would take a long time. But it's this deliciously fascinating kabuki dance that the two of them are doing, this pas de deux of going back and forth. They're playing to the stands, to the grandstands. I would be shocked if they come up with an agreement that has the president testifying voluntarily. And so I think the only way you're going to get that is if you do subpoena him, and that opens a can of worms legally that is going to take months and months to sort out.
And that legal challenge will go all the way to the Supreme Court, David? Would you expect that?
It could go to the Supreme Court. There are some time limits. When you challenge a subpoena, you have a couple of weeks to make your challenge. And so it could be quite an expedited appeal if they try to take it to the Supreme Court. Giuliani's really not going to buy very much time with that. And if he's steering toward that, I think it's actually a tactical mistake because I don't think Kavanaugh will be there in time. I don't think it's going to be a 5-4 vote, even if Kavanaugh is there. President Nixon, with a moderate and conservative Supreme Court, lost 8-0. Yeah. I think it's pretty clear that the subpoena would be enforced. Then where's the president? So I don't think Giuliani's thinking 3 moves ahead.
Okay. There is another long, drawn-out fight currently playing out in Washington. It's Omarosa versus Donald Trump. You know, the clash of the reality star titans. She has the tell-all book. The president, though, remaining fairly quiet on Wednesday while Omarosa continues this media tour. Here's a sample.
There's one way to shut Donald Trump down, and that is to just don't give him the oxygen. And the oxygen comes from the clicks, the likes, the shock, the discussions. If you ignore him, then you starve him of the thing that he loves the most, and that is controversy and attention.
And you know, Michael, I thought that was really interesting because it seems that, you know, she's a reality participant. She knows how it all works. Has she found Trump's, you know, kryptonite? Is that why she's sort of winning this sort of down in the gutter battle? It appears to be sort of ahead at the moment anyway.
Well, I think she's doing so well because she's so much like her mentor. And I mean, she learned it from the master. And so I think what you're seeing is that I think she had it right on spot. That Trump needs this oxygen, and the oxygen is attention and adulation. And when he doesn't get it, he throws a tantrum. And right now, Omarosa's got basically the media coverage that he so wants and so needs. She's really playing his game, but outplaying him right now at the game.
I just want to very quickly go back to this issue of security clearance, because, you know, this is put out there, some believe, as a distraction for Omarosa's headlines and the Mueller investigation. Here's Senator John Kennedy. You know, he actually supports the president in the stripping of security clearances.
I think most Americans look at our national intelligence experts as being above politics. Mr. Brennan has demonstrated that that's not the case. He's been totally political. I think I called him a butthead, and I meant it.
Okay, David, apart from the butthead comment at the end, does he raise a valid point, you know, when it comes to this sort of ongoing, in perpetuity, full-life security clearance, that maybe that's something which should be looked at?
Well, you know, Trump disparaged these former national security officials. They'd have to be superhuman if they didn't have an opinion, which they're allowed to express. Now, whether they should have security clearances for the rest of their lives, John, the reason is, let's assume you're trying to find Osama bin Laden, and somebody has insight, but that person's not in the CIA anymore. You want to confer with that person, see what their experience was in trying to find Osama bin Laden, what the leads were. But you can't go and inquire of that person if that person doesn't have a security clearance. So this is absolutely necessary to the functioning of the country. And, you know, there have been a lot of people maybe who've tried to monetize their, but let's see if the Trump officials try to monetize too. Let's see if they want to have their security, let's see if they want to have their security clearances lapse the day that they leave the Trump administration.
Okay, just want to finish up very quickly on a tweet from the president. He's been up late on the Twitter machine. This is what he put out. I'd stripped a whole bunch of them. They're all corrupt. They've all abused their power. They've all betrayed the American people with a political agenda. They tried to steal and influence an election in the United States. Okay, I'm rubber, you're glue. Michael, you know, we know that, you know, Donald Trump isn't looking at security clearance as an ongoing issue because of those concerns. You know, then there is what he raises here is a separate issue altogether. The bottom line is, you know, the Trump administration is putting this out to distract.
But just read that tweet. This is the first time I've seen it. It's shocking what he's just said. It's paranoid. It's unhinged, and process is important, and that's why you have the security clearances going back and forth, even if you leave office, because process matters. Process is the orderly way you go about managing the government. Trump disdains process. It's all about personality and ego in himself, and I think that tweet should be read by everyone.
Okay, yeah, we're getting so immune to this kind of stuff. So it becomes, just part of the background noise. It's not normal. See, it feels normal. That's the problem, I guess. David and Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.